Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, this was supposed to be a break day for myself, but it seems that Kuro Games has wanted that to not actually happen because they decided to come out with some more drip marketing for version 3.4, despite the fact that we've already had 2 new units revealed. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the 5-star Resonator from Lahai Roy that is going to be sharing the spotlight with the Cyberpunk collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be none other than, you probably guessed it, Lucilla over here. And today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at all of the different drip marketing materials that have been prepared, the splash arts, the little previews, and of course talking about what we know about Lucilla given her past exposure in both the story and some minor bits of gameplay, and kind of like go from there about what we can expect for her kit, for her story involvement, and everything kind of like moving forward. So without further ado, let's go ahead, let's get it started with this splash art over here and what she's saying. My dream now is just to see all my students' dreams come true. So, if you haven't been keeping up with the Wuthering Waves story, I'm pretty sure you have at this point. What we know about Lucilla is that she is very student-oriented as the sort of like headmistress of Star Torch Academy. Yeah, if you kind of like go through the 3.2 seg quest, it's basically all about her sort of like fighting her own insecurities, but she's actually kind of already dealt with all of them. So, yeah, this whole sort of like past trauma sequence that she handled it better than pretty much any other playable character possibly could have, because it's sort of like a struggle that already occurred for her. So her story in a lot of ways feels like it's almost already over, at least from what we've seen in the game. She kind of feels like one of the most she's already gone through like her whole sort of like story arc before anything's even happened, before she's even available on banner. And when the quest is only like an hour and 20 minutes long, we can kind of see that, you know, she's not really that relevant for the rest of Lahai Roy moving forward. So I think the main take that we can have when it comes to her like placement in version 3.4 after the whole Lahai Roy problem has been dealt with is that she's probably going to lead us into the next region that we have in the game, probably as some sort of like envoy, or like, hey, I'm the headmistress from Star Torch Academy and I'm over here to try to negotiate like something. I don't know, we got a cool new Gundam, you want to go check it out? Some shit like that. So, would it be too surprising at all if she kind of like is the segue for us into the next region? That's what I think most people would be expecting over here story-wise. So yeah, let's see a little bit more. Lucilla, president of Star Torch Academy, an idealist who tackles her matters one step at a time. She quietly watches over her students and strives to create a space where they can chase their dreams freely. It's kind of ironic that the president of Star Torch Academy is kind of like coming out after the story in that region is like done and over with. We pretty much know that there's not much else to do. The Exostrider's gone. Aleph 1 got fucking gay bowled into like the corner of the universe. And there's not like too much else for Lahai Roy to actually worry about, and probably Star Torch as well. So, I probably see her taking on a role similar to Cardathea and the role that she had in Septimont, where Cardathea was kind of like, yeah, she was kind of like there as like a guest star, if we're going to be honest. She didn't feel like she was like, you know, front and center in the Septimont story, kind of like in the background doing stuff while Rover's obviously progressing the main storyline. I could see Lucilla kind of taking on a similar sort of role considering her story's already done and over with. So, yeah, that's the main thing over here. I don't really feel like she's going to be anything that groundbreaking, and I think that's intentional because they don't want her to share the spotlight too much when it comes to the other stuff that we're gonna have in the patch, right? I wouldn't be surprised if like Lucilla's story involvement is very similar to all the other story involvement that she's had. A bit more of like a supporting character that helps other characters do things, but it's kind of clear that she never really has the spotlight herself, especially even in her own quest. Now, time for us to switch the conversation a little bit, right? And talk about what potential role she's going to have in the game. And this is where this actual second little teaser over here is going to be very relevant. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look at this one. Lucilla is a master of memory regression who can extract and materialize memories. So remember how I said she might intro us into the next region? Maybe there's a good possibility Lucilla reads some of Rover's memories, as she's kind of like, yeah, this is where we should be going next. Let's take a little trip over there. You can probably guess what's going on. Utilizing this ability, she can even reconstruct previously experienced scenes and events before projecting them into reality. And this is going to give us some clues as to her attribute and what she might do on the battlefield. Don't worry, guys. I've thought this one through. So let's go ahead. Let's see what preview we got over here. So starts off with the reel of film, and you can see her recreating some of the past story events that we've already had. She also got disco music too. That's kind of crazy. Oh, she got the reel in her hand as well. So yeah, that's the vibe that she's got going on. You can also see in her splash art, right? She's really focused on things like photography, films, dresses, fashion, photos, all of that stuff. It's all pretty clear. And, well, this is actually one of the themes that we have for units that make things. This is going to surprise you. Units that make things, like physical things, right, are typically Glacio. I'm not joking. She's also got like the blue hair too, so it's like, you know, it's definitely a possibility. But think about it this way. These are all the characters on the roster that make stuff. Hiyuki makes a fuck ton of little ice sculptures, right? Summons these plants and shit, and of course, makes like the little birds out of ice, right? We all know Hiyuki makes stuff and materializes it into reality. You want to know who also makes stuff and materializes it? Yeah, Carlotta with her fucking guns. Yeah, bro, she summons like 700 guns and crystals. And then you got Jeja. And what does she make? Ladies and gentlemen, she makes paintings. She makes paintings. And these are all physical things that they create and then bring into reality. Some of them break the stuff, though, right? We all know Sanwa and Hiyuki, they break their own ice creations. But that is a typical thematic that we see. What about Ling Yang? He's retarded, so don't worry about him. A common theme that we see across the non-retarded Glacio characters in this game is that, well, they all share that thematic. And, well, guess what when it comes to Lucilla? She literally creates film roll, like physical film roll that other characters are able to interact with. And I guess to a degree, maybe like part of her forte involves, I don't know, like making these dresses and shit like that. Anyways, I think the purple over here is a bit of a bait. I think the purple over here is intentionally designed to make you think that she's Electro, because you want to know who else is purple? Yeah, this bitch is purple in her second form. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she's purple as well. And one of the big things over here that I think is one of the, you know, the obvious clues for what her set is probably going to do is, or what her role probably is going to be, well, you just got to take a look at one of the new Sonata sets that got released in game. The Reel of Spliced Memories. If you know anything about the Lahai Roy sets, it's that they are kind of named after the unit that uses them. And Reel of Spliced Memories is kind of, I don't know, perfectly one-in-one with the shit that you're seeing over here. Like, this is a reel and these are spliced. You get what's going on, right? You kind of get what's happening over here. We all kind of can tell that's one-to-one what Lucilla's forte ability actually is. And when it comes to this Reel of Spliced Memories, this is the effect. Inflicting tune rupture shifting or tune strain shifting on enemies increases the tune break boost of resonators in the team by 20 for 30 seconds. And effects of the same name do not stack. This is kind of like the rejuvenating glow of tune pieces where it applies to every person on the team, doesn't apply on outro skill, any of that. And this is obviously a very supportive based echo set where, yes, you are supposed to be dealing some damage with the with the bonus over here, but it's mainly meant to provide that tune break buffing to the team. And Lucilla being a character that I guess applies tune rupture or tune strained, or maybe even fucking both at this point, would kind of make sense as the headmistress of the academy, right? So this over here, her being one of like the biggest enablers ever, does seem pretty cool. And I think it would be awesome if her as a kit, she just applied both of these. Maybe had a little bit of healing ability on top or something like that, and she was kind of meant to be used as like a substitute for Mornier in some sense. I think that would be kind of interesting. That'd be kind of cool if we're going to be honest over here. So yeah, just wondering about the possibilities there. However, there's another use that some individuals probably might not be too used to yet. I think that Lucilla as a, kind of like lore relevant character like this, I wouldn't be surprised if she ended up having 2 resonance modes. And by 2 resonance modes, I mean the shit that we're seeing over here. I think Lucilla's gonna have one where she applies Tune Rupture and Tune Strain, and then a secondary form, ladies and gentlemen, where she's got Glacio Chafe application. And the reason for that is simple. Hiyuki's Sonata set over here is possibly the longest one in the game, Wishes of Quiet Snowfall, because it has 2 effects. One, where dealing liberation damage increases crit rate by 25%, and then the other, where using your outro skill without dealing any liberation damage causes the incoming resonator to grant a 25% glacial damage bonus. So basically, the sub DPS set and the DPS set are one and the same. And my personal take over here is this. I think that Lucilla, as the sort of like partner in crime for Hiyuki, as you've seen across pretty much the entire seg, as well as the actual 3.3 main story quest. Yeah, Hiyuki and Lucilla are meant to be kind of like buddy. That's like, Lucilla might be the only person that Hiyuki talked to before Rover, if we're frankly being honest. So that wouldn't be too surprising to me at all if Hiyuki ends up being the sub DPS over here. Or sorry, Lucilla ends up being the sub DPS for Hiyuki that doesn't actually utilize the liberation part of the set. She only does the outro skill stuff. So that just makes me think that Lucilla won't deal any liberation damage at all. Maybe has like a second form, maybe has like coordinated attacks, but no liberation damage anywhere when it comes to that unit, which would make sense to me because that would be the only way to activate this set. Plus, well, let's be entirely real here. Kuro usually completes a negative status team relatively quickly, at least within like a version or 2 of each other. And it would be odd for Hiyuki to kind of have to wait until 3.5 or beyond, right? That's a long time later for her to actually have her best in slot team, because yeah, she can't be used with Lene forever. I'm personally hoping that Lucilla has these roles. She heals. I would really like her to heal. I'd like her to have 2 forms, and I think it would be neat if she was a healer that ended up applying Tune Strain and Tune Rupture. That to me is kind of like something that's a bit missing on the roster, and with that background set, with her providing some Tune Break boost as well while doing all of that, that would be pretty bad ass. And lastly, because of her ability to like create things, I'm gonna be honest, what do you do when you take photos of something? They like freeze, right? Because you take the photo of them and they're like stuck. I wouldn't be too surprised. It wouldn't even be unthematic for her to have like Glacio Chafe and freezing ability on her camera shots, right? Camera shots, camera flashes, all of that, freezing the enemy and applying Glacio Chafe, that's pretty thematic too, if we're going to be honest, right? Like, that actually feels like it makes sense. I don't think anybody could really complain about that one. That would be pretty fair. A little bit like Charlotte from Genshin, because, well, what do you see over here? You see, well, a bunch of cameras, a bunch of film roll, all of that. Glacio Chafe also makes them slower, so play them in slow motion or some shit like that. You guys can probably guess what's going on. So yeah, I see her as a potential sub DPS for Hiyuki, the long-awaited one that many are wishing for right now. Lets Hiyuki get her her 3rd Snow Rest stack or something like that, and make the Glacio Chafe or Glacio Bite damage a lot higher. Maybe a little bit of that going on. but then kind of like a replacement for Lene or like a Mornier. Just like a comprehensive Toon Rupture and Toon Strain Applier. I don't want her to just be one. I kind of want her to be both. And I feel like both is like fair. I feel like both is fair because this is the headmistress, ladies and gentlemen. Just make her the president. Just make her deal like no damage or some shit. I don't fucking know. And just make her the most universal Toon applier. Yeah. And then maybe make her Glacio Chafe do more damage. I don't fucking know. We can kind of see what's going on. Because Lene right now is stretched way too thin with all the new Toon teams that have come out. Probably the new Toon teams that are going to come out in the future. And yeah, what better way for her to have her students' dreams come true by, I don't know, kind of like making her students' lives easier. Because yeah, Lene right now is overworked like crazy. But yeah, that's going to be my overall take on this drip on Lucilla's role. We'll see later on what the reveal is actually going to be when it comes to her attribute and her weapon type. I'm thinking Rectifier and I'm thinking Glacio. But what we also got to keep in mind is that, damn, what is Kuro gonna do over here to make her sellable? Bro, her kit might have to be broken. Bro, she might have to be overpowered because, like, what are you doing when this is your competition in the middle of her debut banner? Maybe she'll be best in slot for these guys. I don't necessarily think so, though. I don't know how they would end up doing that. But, yeah. We'll just have to see. Maybe this is Kuro Games sabotaging themselves and themselves over. But, well, it looks like they're saving the Bombi for last, and that might ruin her. We'll see, though. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.